The Chauvin trial continues in Minneapolis as the chief of police comes out and says that was absolutely not in our protocol what Derek Chauvin did. So we'll discuss a little bit of what happened there. Google versus Oracle goes to the Supreme Court, and we'll talk a bit about what happened there. And another decision where Clarence Thomas decides to deal a blow to President Trump, but also possibly to the tech giants as well. So we'll see what's going on with that. In other news, the Arkansas governor has vetoed his anti trans bill, and I'm not sure if anybody knows what to think about that one at this point. And a Portland high school changes their mascot and then has to freeze because it might be racist. It's going to be all this and more. Hey, 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 do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We have got a bunch of stuff to get to today, including I'm going to be eating a little bit of crow because I just said that I hadn't had a chance to watch Break the Cycle with Joshua Smith yet, and he's telling me that he's watched my show, so now I know what I have to do at work today. But he's a fan, and I'm going to go check out his stuff too. So absolutely, and if you, the rest of you guys, if you haven't checked out Break the Cycle yet, absolutely do so. He's trying to get Razor Fist on, so that'd be a good one to see, I would think. Like I say, I'm not familiar with the programming yet, but I know Razor Fist always does tend to bring out the best in people as well. So I've seen him on various other shows, and even when he's on Crowder, I can actually stand Crowder while he's on there. The best in you, and that actually could be a good combination. So go ahead and check those guys out over there. But before we get started, also check out all of my friends over at the Freedom Scoop Media Group. We have great shows such as The Generational Gap, The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, and The Freckles and Brit Show. Come and join us on April 17th as we go live for 24 hours. 24 of them to raise awareness for suicide prevention and to raise money for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention to help prevent further suicides and help get resources to the families who did tragically have to lose somebody to the horrible societal construct that we have going on right now. I know, like I said, we will never eliminate it entirely, but if we can reduce and save just one life by getting money to these people and getting them the resources that they can have to help, that's going to be a win in my book. So come on over there, check us out, April 17th, midnight to midnight, Central Time. We've got great interviews coming out. We've even got Styx is going to come and join us for about a half an hour in the early hours of the morning because he's over on Amsterdam time, and it's really late over there. So come back over there, check us out, and once the website's back up, we're going to have great features. You can pick up swag, or you can come and support our creators directly. We want to help these guys make more content and make better content, get better equipment, and get better stuff. So you can come over there and help us support great creators. All right, let's look at the finance for the day. Looking at the Dow Jones for the morning here, it had a fairly sharp increase in the morning from the futures, and then it just kind of held mostly flat throughout the day. A flat but a climb throughout the rest of the day there, ending the day at 33,527.19, possibly fueled on the fact that the jobs report was still blown out, and we still look at the economy opening back up, and even Fauci's coming out and saying, oh man, no, we're not going to do any of the federal passport. Well, mostly because constitutionally we can't, but I'm going to come out and try to say that it was my idea because I want you to worship me as a god. I'm going to be like the new Caesar, okay? Because I'm Italian, I'm Roman. I'm going to be the new Caesar. I'm going to be Faucius Caesar, okay? So, and I've got that article up here too. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the program, but definitely looking into that there. Let's look at what Bitcoin is sitting at right now. Bitcoin is at 58,626 US dollars and 60 US cents, a very slight increase over yesterday as well. So that's hanging flat right now too. maybe some eased fears of inflation, maybe some eased fears of not being able to go back to work. But it is holding steady right now as well. I still don't think that the 400,000 mark by the end of 2021, I think that one's an ambitious goal. But I still say that we may see 100,000 by the end of the year. It'll depend on what it does, and we're going to keep watching it every day because Spartan likes it. All right, on the gas for Madison, Wisconsin. The low price leader, Costco, is still at $2.53 per gallon. But scrolling down into there, we see a lot of 253s and then a jump back up to the Mobile and Kelly's Market and BP are at $2.59 a gallon. So we're starting to see some of the creep back up, and the Race in Sun Prairie is also at $2.58. So a little bit of creep up in some places, a little bit of holding steady in others, but it looks like the gas prices are going to hold for now. And let's see what IBD has to say. Free webinar, Supercharged ETF Strategies. Register now. Do you guys want to do Supercharged ETF Strategies in a week? I don't. From Investors Business Daily, Dow Jones Futures signal modest losses. 3 tech giants break out above buy points. From Scott Littonen, Dow futures, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ 100 futures, were lower early Tuesday, following Monday's record highs. Tesla stock surged on strong deliveries, while tech giants Alphabet and Facebook and Microsoft are in new buy zones. On Monday, the tech-heavy NASDAQ composite advanced 1.7%. The S&P 500 moved up 1.4%, while the Dow Jones Industrial traded up 1.1%. Among the Dow leaders, Apple rallied 2.4% Monday, while Microsoft raised 2.8% higher. In today's stock market, Boeing moved out of buy range following last week's bullish move. Tesla surged 4.4% Monday after the company reported strong deliveries. FANG leaders Alphabet, Google, and Facebook broke out past new buy points on Monday. Among the top stocks to watch, chip leaders Nvidia and Qorvo are in or near buy zones. People are buying new phones. Alphabet, Boeing, Microsoft are IBD leaderboard stocks. Nvidia and Qorvo were featured in this week's Stocks Near a Buy Zone column. Alphabet and Microsoft were discussed in Monday's IBD live show, which I've also never seen, on the futures. Ahead of the stock market open on Tuesday, Dow Jones futures lost 0.1% versus fair value, while S&P 500 futures moved down 0.15%. The NASDAQ lost 0.1% versus fair value. Remember that trading in Dow Jones futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. On Monday, the 10-year Treasury yield closed at 1.72%, just below last week's 14-month high of 1.765%. So the Treasury yield's still up a little bit, more than I'm actually comfortable seeing it. It's hovering around that record high, so we are going to start to see some inflation coming back out of this. And I hope you guys are well stocked and have enough in stocks and out of savings that you'll be able to weather that one. Among exchange-traded funds, the Innovator IBD 50 traded up 0.8% Monday. The NASDAQ 100 tracker Invesco QQQ Trust ETF rallied 2%. Meanwhile, the SPDR S&P 500 ETF gained 1.4%. So that's what we're seeing from IBD. It's kind of a slow day as far as stocks go, but looks like we're going to see a little bit of a drop. Let's see what CNBC had to say about yesterday. Stock futures are a little changed a day after the Dow and S&P close at records. From Yoon Lee. Stock futures dipped early trading Tuesday after the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500 both closed at record highs in the prior session as strong economic data boosted hopes of a smooth recovery. Futures tied to the Dow Industrials pointed to an opening loss of about 30 points. S&P 500 futures lost 0.2%, and NASDAQ 100 futures shed 0.2%. Some tech stocks, such as Amazon, Microsoft, and Nvidia, are seeing light losses in pre-market trading. Wall Street rallied to record levels on Monday after Friday's blowout report, and a surge in the gauge of service industry activity showed the economic rebound gained momentum amid accelerated vaccine rollout. Vaccinations are rolling out at a record clip, and historic stimulus efforts from Congress have all paved the way for continued positive market momentum, said Chris Larkin, Managing Director of Trading and Investing Product at E-Trade Financial. Bond yields had another quiet session with the 10-year Treasury yield held steady at 1.71%, easing fears of rising inflation. Those are the words I'm looking for. The 10-year rate was down slightly Tuesday morning to 1.70%. That's still really high. Cleveland Federal Reserve President Loretta Mester told CNBC Monday that she is largely unconcerned by this year's run-up in government bond yields. I think the higher bond yields are quite understandable in the context of the improvement in the economic outlook. The increase has been an orderly increase, Mester said, so I'm not concerned at this point with the rise in yields. I don't think there's anything for the Fed to react to. All right, let's keep going. With that, investors continue to assess President Biden's $2 trillion infrastructure proposal announced last week and its chance to become a reality. While politicians on both sides of the aisle support funding to rebuild American roads and bridges, disagreements over the ultimate size of the bill and how to pay for it remain, including Biden's plan to raise the corporate tax to 28%. Biden said he is not worried that a corporate tax hike would hurt the economy, except for all the jobs that aren't there and all the price increases, because the corporations don't pay the taxes. You do. All of you guys do. Conservative Democrat Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia reportedly said he opposes the proposed tax hike to a level that high. So, a lot of stuff looking at with this. We're looking at infrastructure. We are looking at activity. We're looking at people going back to work. Honestly, the brand new jobs are the only thing that I think are holding this back up. It's all a house of cards at this point, all the finances that we see in this country. It is all a house of cards right now because we've got a federal government in all three chambers that are looking to increase the taxes on the people who make the jobs. But we've also got a bunch of people that are able to go back to work because everything's opening back up. We do have businesses that are not coming back. So hang on to your seats, guys, because it's going to be a wild one. All right, let's start looking at the Chauvin trial for the morning. So I've got a couple stories on this. This is still one of those things where this is largely not being covered by the news because, well, it's a lot of dry legalese and they don't want you to know what's actually going on. They just want the recycled sound clip so you get outraged on social media and click on their websites. But let's have a look at what's going on here, starting with Fox 19. Chauvin trial. Was his knee on Floyd's shoulder? This is video. Let's see how long this is.
That action is not de-escalation.
Derek Chauvin's knee on George Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes violated the Minneapolis Police Department's policies and training. That's according to testimony from the police chief and the commander of the training division.
Is this a trained technique that's by the Minneapolis Police Department when you were overseeing the training unit?
It is not.
In cross-examination, the defense arguing police officers' use of force is different in every case they encounter.
What the policy reads is that the reasonableness of a particular use of force must be judged from the perspective of the reasonable officer on the scene rather than with the 20/20 vision of hindsight, right?
Yes.
Also trying to throw into question where Chauvin's knee actually was.
Would you agree that from the perspective of Officer King's body camera, it appears that Officer Chauvin's knee was more on Mr. Floyd's shoulder blade?
Yes.
A charge prosecutors immediately attacked, saying Chauvin's knee did not move from Floyd's neck to his shoulder until right before the paramedics arrived.
Did you see the defendant's knee anywhere but the neck of Mr. Floyd up until that time?
That is correct.
In Minneapolis, I'm Camila Bernal.
So that's going to be one of the things that comes into question for this as to where the placement of the knee was. And like I say, I've said this from the beginning. There were easy charges to this case. There really were. But none of them are what's being charged. Instead, they're looking to get this guy up in a prison and let him face down all the people that he's arrested at this point. So that's what they're seeing from that. Let's have a look at what's coming from CBS 10 WBNS. Derek Chauvin trial. Minneapolis police says Chauvin's use of force violated policy. From Diane Sandberg. In the Hennepin County Courthouse on Monday, jurors heard from 3 of the prosecution's expert witnesses. Dr. Bradford Wankheed Langenfield, who said he tried to resuscitate George Floyd in the emergency room on May 25th of 2020. Katie Blackwell, an inspector of the 5th Precinct and commander of the MPD Training Division, and most notably Minneapolis Police Chief Medaria Arredondo. Former Minneapolis Police Officer Derek Chauvin is charged with second-degree murder, second-degree manslaughter, and third-degree murder in George Floyd's death. He and 3 other officers were fired by Chief Arredondo within 24 hours of Floyd's death. Arredondo was on the stand for most of Monday and said that after reviewing all of the video footage, he believes Chauvin's actions violated the MPD's policies on de-escalation, the use of force, and rendering medical aid to a person in custody. That's cover your ass mode. He said that while it's important that his officers get home safe at night, it's also important that their community members get home safe. Of all the things that we do as peace officers for the Minneapolis Police Department, Arredondo said, it is my firm belief that one singular incident we will be judged forever on will be our use of force. Jurors also heard testimony from another member of the MPD, Inspector Katie Blackwell, prior to January of this year. She was the commander of the MPD Training Division. Blackwell said she has known and worked with Derek Chauvin for about 20 years. When prosecutor Steve Schleicher showed her a picture of Chauvin kneeling on George Floyd's neck outside of Cup Food, she confirmed it was not consistent with MPD training. Okay, which is fine. If that's not in the manual, then bring out the manual and we will clear all this up. Like that. That'll all be done. Blackwell testified that per policy, a neck restraint is compressing one or both sides of the neck using an arm or a leg, but MPD trains officers to use one arm or 2 arms. I don't know what kind of improvised position that is, she said, so that's not what we train. Judge Cahill said after hearing from a training sergeant of Friday and the 2 officers who spoke Monday about Chauvin's use of force, the state will need to stop focusing on that topic. Why? And I ask that legitimately. Why? You have 2 charges on the floor that require intent. And one that doesn't require intent, but it does place blame either on the force or on the officer. I would think that the training manual and the use of force are the key factors in this. This is not about your fee-fees. This is actually about what the use of force is. And that is exactly what needs to be focused on this. Because A, there's entirely too much force that's allowed by police departments, which is something we need to go after on a departmental level, not necessarily on an individual level. But B, that establishes intent. We're getting to the point of being cumulative, Cahill said. You're not going to be able to ask every officer, what would you have done differently? Well, yeah, there's that too. The third witness for the state, who spoke early in the day on Monday, was the ER doctor who treated Floyd when he arrived at the hospital on May 25th. Dr. Brandon Wankheed Langenfield, I don't know why that name is such a tongue twister to me, but I tripped over it both times I read it, said he did not receive any report that officers had attempted to give Floyd CPR and that the paramedics who brought him in did not mention a potential drug overdose or heart attack. Those are among the possible causes of death that Chauvin's attorney plans to use in his defense. The doctor noted that Floyd's heart was barely beating when he arrived at the hospital and testified that Floyd was in PEA, or pulseless electrical activity, which he said can suggest hypoxia or low oxygen. Langenfeld said that he felt that hypoxia or oxygen insufficiency was more likely than a drug overdose or a heart attack as the cause of Floyd's death. Asphyxia is another commonly used term. Once Dr. Langenfeld determined that they could not resuscitate Floyd, he pronounced him dead. A motions hearing is scheduled for the court on Tuesday morning, followed by testimony resuming at 9:15 a.m. in about an hour. So, once again, we're looking at, and with the fentanyl in his system and the other drug cocktail, the heaviness of his lungs, hypoxia, low oxygen, is a possibility in both the knee on the neck, if he was strangling him out, or the drug overdose as well. So, basically, the prosecution is going to come out and try to use this as a point to come out and say, no, he definitely strangled him out with the knee, but, we're in one of those ambiguous places as well, where this could go either or. But, and once again, for the main two charges, including the one that if it comes out as a not guilty plea, or a not guilty verdict on the one charge, it's still going to burn down the city of Minneapolis. I still don't see the intent. I don't. That's the important part of this. Not whose fifis got hurt. All right, I got one from the Daily Wire on this, and then we'll go on and talk about the Supreme Court. Doctor who declared George Floyd dead talks excited delirium, drug use during Derek Chauvin trial, from Amanda Prestigiacomo. The doctor who declared George Floyd dead on Monday on the stand that he believed Floyd died of cardiac arrest caused by an oxygen deficiency or asphyxia. Dr. Bradford Langenfeld said that initially one of his leading theories was that excited delirium, which can be caused by drugs, triggered the lack of oxygen. Langenfeld, though, thought at the time that this was unlikely because paramedics did not indicate to him that the then unidentified man was sweating or appeared agitated, both very common in overdoses. I've seen a lot of cases of mental health crises or drug use leading to severe agitated states, he said. That is almost always reported by paramedics, and so the absence of that information was telling. This is a picture, not a video, otherwise we'd go back and watch the video. According to the New York Times, a former newspaper, there isn't a generally accepted definition of excited delirium, according to a 2018 review of the scientific literature, but it is used to describe someone who becomes distressed or aggressive from a mental illness or the use of psychoactive drugs. However, Langenfeld, who was the prosecution's first witness, later acknowledged to Eric Nelson, a defense attorney for former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, that drug use, specifically fentanyl and methamphetamine use, could cause hypoxia or asphyxiation. Here's how the exchange went. Once again, do I have video of this? I have that one, but let's see what we have for length. No, we're not going to watch a 5-minute video on this one. All right, let's see what they have here. There are many things that cause hypoxia and are still considered asphyxiation. Langenfeld replies, correct. Drug use, certain drugs can cause hypoxia. Correct. Specifically fentanyl. Well, that's correct. How about methamphetamine? It can. Combination of the two? Yes. Nelson questioned Langenfeld about carbon dioxide levels relative to shortness of breath. The doctor agreed that higher levels of CO2 can lead to a sensation of shortness of breath. Even without added stress, Langenfeld also said that fentanyl can cause higher CO2 levels because it depresses the ventilation or the breathing. Floyd's CO2 levels were double what is average. When Langenfeld attended to him, he said. When Floyd was in Langenfeld's care, at no time did he have a heartbeat sufficient to sustain life. About a half hour after working on Floyd, the emergency room doctor declared him dead. After officers were notified on May 25th that Floyd allegedly gave counterfeit money at a convenience store, Chauvin and 3 other officers arrested and detained Floyd. Viral video shows that Chauvin kneeled on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes while detaining Floyd. So, a lot of stuff going on with this, and once again, we come back again to intent. Cause of death and intent. So more testimony will be coming out. I'm sure we'll be talking more about this tomorrow. Let's keep going. From CNBC. Supreme Court erases ruling against Trump over his Twitter account. from Tucker Higgins. The Supreme Court on Monday erased a federal appeals court decision holding that former President Donald Trump violated the Constitution by blocking his critics on Twitter. The justices vacated the decision from the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals and sent it back to a lower court with instructions to dismiss the case as moot or no longer active now that Trump is a private citizen. The action means the lower court's decision will no longer bind future judges. A three-judge panel of the Second Circuit held unanimously that in 2019 that Trump was acting in his official capacity when he used Twitter's block feature. By doing so, the court said Trump was effectively excluding individuals from a public forum in violation of the First Amendment. And I want you to pay attention to this right here, because that's actually going to be important in some of the other articles that we're going to talk about surrounding this. Monday's announcement came in an order list, and without a written explanation of the court's reasoning, there were no noted dissents. Justice Clarence Thomas wrote in concurrence that he agreed with the decision to vacate the Second Circuit opinion, given that Trump no longer held office. Thomas said the petition highlighted the principal legal difficulty that surrounds digital platforms, namely that applying old doctrines to new digital platforms is rarely straightforward. Respondents have a point. For example, that some aspects of Mr. Trump's account resemble a constitutionally protected public forum, Thomas wrote, but it seems rather odd to say that something is a government forum when a private company has unrestricted authority to do away with it. Also important. The suit was brought by individuals who were blocked by Trump on Twitter and the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University. It was known as Trump versus Knight First Amendment Institute, number 20-197, until the change in administrations, at which point the case automatically became known as Biden versus the First Amendment Institute. The Justice Department originally asked the top court to reverse the Second Circuit's decision, but asked the justices to dismiss the case as moot on January 19th, a day before President Biden's inauguration, because of the change in administrations. The Knight First Amendment Institute agreed that the case was moot, though for a different reason. The legal group said that the case was moot after Twitter kicked Trump off its platform in January in the wake of the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, which basically meant that, well, this is what we wanted to happen, so hey, we're not going to pursue this anymore. Because under the Second Circuit ruling, that actually would have been illegal for Twitter to do if that was a constitutionally protected public square. Follow the bouncing ball. In a statement, Jamil Jaffer, the Knight Institute's executive order, said the case was about a very simple principle that is foundational to our democracy. Public officials can't bar people from public forums simply because they disagree with them. While we would like to have the Supreme Court to leave the Second Circuit's rulings on the books, we're gratified that the appeals court's reasoning has been already adopted by other courts, and we're confident it will continue to shape the way the public officials use social media, Jaffer said. So, in this decision, and I said this is going to be important off of this, Clarence Thomas declared that Twitter, platforming major U.S. officials, is a public square, which means that if the public official cannot disclude people from seeing their tweets, then the platform probably also should not be able to disclude people from using it. Which is kind of an interesting way to look at this here, and we've got some more talking about this one. This is from NPR. Justice Clarence Thomas takes aim at tech and its power to cut off speech. This is from Bobby Allen. This is from Morning Edition. Make sure that you donate to NPR because they need your help to spread more of their progressive ideas around the world. They are funded, like PBS, in part by viewers like you, but also from viewers like you's taxes. But they need more than just your taxes, so please give them a donation. They need your help. Let's see what Bobby Allen has to say. The Supreme Court on Monday dismissed a lower court ruling that former President Trump violated the First Amendment rights of critics he blocked on Twitter. Lawyers for those Trump blocked on Twitter argue that the former president's Twitter account functioned as an official source of information about the government, leading to a federal appeals court to rule that Trump's blocking amounted to illegally silencing their viewpoints. But Trump is no longer in office, and Twitter has permanently banned him from its platform. Over glorifying violence, so the lower court's ruling from the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals should be tossed. The Supreme Court ruled, instructing the court to dismiss the case as moot or no longer active. While the case can no longer be cited as precedent, other courts have held that an elected official's social media accounts can be treated as public forums, and so the dismissal is unlikely to affect the development of the law, said Jamil Jaffer, director of the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University, which sued Trump over his blocking of critics. I think public officials are and should be on notice that if they block people from their social media accounts on the basis of viewpoint, they are violating the First Amendment, Jaffer told NPR. The decision from the High Court did not surprise court watchers, but a concurrence in the ruling from Justice Clarence Thomas has drawn intense attention in technology circles. In it, Thomas took a broad aim at social media networks, attacking Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, the landmark law that protects technology companies from lawsuits and also provides platforms wide latitude in patrolling speech on their sites. To Thomas, Twitter's ban of Trump exposed the potential abuses of this legal protection, noting how applying old doctrines to new digital platforms is rarely straightforward. Thomas went on, as Twitter made clear, the right to cut off speech lies most powerfully in the hands of private digital platforms. The extent to which that power matters for purposes of the First Amendment, and the extent to which that power could lawfully be modified, raise interesting and important questions, Thomas wrote. Big tech companies, Facebook and Google, Thomas pointed out, have vast and largely unchecked control over online marketplaces. And there it is, right there. It changes nothing that these platforms are not the sole means of distributing speech or information. A person always could choose to avoid the toll bridge or train and instead swim the Charles River or hike the Oregon Trail, Thomas wrote. But in assessing whether a company exercises substantial market power, what matters is whether the alternatives are comparable. For many of today's digital platforms, nothing is. In Thomas's view, social media companies are sufficiently akin to common carrier, such as a public utility like a telephone company, and should be regulated in this manner, he wrote. And that's just it. Especially for Twitter, but also for Facebook and Google as well. But especially for Twitter. If it's going to be ruled by the Knight First Amendment Coalition, what was the name of that one? I don't want to get it wrong. Institute. If it's going to be ruled by the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University that Trump's Twitter is a public platform, therefore Twitter is a public platform, discluding Trump from being able to, as a public official, block people who are critical of him means that Twitter discluding people from having the access to him would also fall under the same purview. That kind of takes the private company out of it. Yes, it is technically still a private company, but like I said, if they can rule on an individual user of that private company and whether or not he's violating the First Amendment by discluding people from seeing his stuff, then the person who's hosting him is also violating the First Amendment by discluding people from being able to see this. And as long as they're going to host and blue check various government officials, then that ceases to be a private company, and that does become a public utility at that point, and the modern public square. This ruling from the Second Court, which I'm pretty sure is why they're scrambling to get rid of the fucking thing, because this ruling from the Second Court is pretty damning to Twitter, kicking off everybody who doesn't agree with their narrow worldview. So this is definitely something to look for. In Thomas's view, social media companies are, I've said that already. The remarks from Thomas are not the first time he's written that Section 230 should be reined in. He wrote in October of 2020 that it behooves the justices to narrow the scope of the law. Harvard Law School's Evelyn Douek argued that Twitter's booting of Trump may just be the action that leads to a stripping of social media platforms' legal protections. Well, yes, once again, if it is the public platform at that point, if it is the public square, then it does fall under First Amendment purview. So you can have it one way or the other, but you can't have it both ways. You can have it where your public officials cannot block anybody because it's the public square and they can't exclude anybody from saying their stuff. But you can't have it in the same way where, I'm Jack Dorsey, this is a problem and we're going to look into it. And you have where we go one, we go all in your Twitter profile. And that's not legal. So we're going to kick you off. So, a lot of stuff going on with that. That's definitely one to watch. And we will see what actually happens with Twitter and how flooded it gets with bots and MAGA people once again, if this does go through the court. Now, if I'd have been kicked off Twitter, I wouldn't go back. But it also will pose a challenge to the former president for his social media company because a lot of people are going to want to see him back on Twitter. A lot of things to see here, a lot of things to go with, and we will see where this lands. All right, in other Supreme Court news, talking about big tech, from CNN, Supreme Court hands Google a victory in a multi-billion-dollar case against Oracle. From Brian Fung. The Supreme Court has handed Google a win in a decade-old case in software development, holding that technology giant did not commit copyright infringement against Oracle when it copied snippets of programming language to build its Android operating system. Google's copying of so-called application programming interfaces from Oracle's Java SE was an example of fair use, the court held in a 6-2 decision authored by Justice Stephen Breyer. In addition to resolving a multi-billion-dollar dispute between the tech titans, the ruling helps affirm a long-standing practice in software development, but the court declined to weigh in on the broader question of whether APIs are copyrightable. Google said the court's opinion is a victory for consumers, interoperability, and the computer science. The decision gives legal certainty to the next generation of developers whose new products and services will benefit consumers. In a statement, Oracle reiterated its allegations that Google stole Java and used its economic dominance to fight a protracted battle legally. The Google platform just got bigger and market power greater, Oracle said. The barriers to entry higher and the ability to compete lower. This behavior is exactly why regulatory authorities around the world and in the US are examining Google's business practices. Writing for the court, Breyer said that while it's difficult to apply traditional copyright concepts in the context of software programming, Google copied only what it was needed to allow users to put their accrued talents to work in a new and transformative program. A world where Oracle was allowed to enforce copyright claim, Breyer added, would risk harm to the public because it would establish Oracle as a new gatekeeper for software code and others that others rather wanted to use. You know, kind of like Google is. But we won't talk about that. Oracle alone would hold the key, Breyer wrote. The result would prove highly profitable to Oracle. But, now Google alone holds the key, or other firms holding a copyright in computer interfaces. But the lock would interfere with, not further copyright's basic creative objectives. So, I'm not going to pretend that I know enough about programming to tell you how this goes and how much was actually used. But this was a major win for Google at this point. I know that much. And we'll see what happens with competition and if more competition does come up off of this. All right. Let's keep going. I've got one here from Fox 5. You remember last week when we saw that graphic video of the Pakistani man holding on for dear life to the side of his car because two DC girls decided that they wanted to go for a joyride in it? Well, we've got a couple stories on that. Starting with Fox 5 Washington. DC police confirm suspects in deadly Northeast car crash appeared to be minors. From Stephanie Ramirez and Evan Lambert. Which I think we actually knew that already, but Fox 5 found it important, so let's talk about this. DC police have confirmed that the suspects they're looking for in connection with a deadly crash involving what family members say was a stolen car in Northeast appear to have been minors. Is this an old story? Do we need to skip this because it's an old story? Okay, no it's not. It was published 13 hours ago and updated 9 hours ago. I thought they already had the people in custody. Maybe I don't pay as close attention to the news as I thought I did. My cell phone! I gotta go back in and get my cell phone. Earlier on Monday, the victim's sister told Fox 5 that she believed that a young car thief had been behind the wheel during the crash, part of an endemic of vehicle crimes involving young suspects in D.C. Initially, police had declined to say how old the suspects were, saying Fox 5 would need to submit a Freedom of Information Act request. They told me yesterday this is the beginning of the investigation, and I'm just really concerned about what's happening with the youth and legal system, that you let them out so very quickly, and you've taken someone's father away from them, said Sandra Johnson in a phone interview with Fox 5 DC on Monday. Johnson tells Fox 5 after speaking with the detectives that she was told 2 juveniles in a stolen car are behind the early Sunday morning crash that killed her brother, 30-year-old Brian Johnson. DEC police say the crash happened at just before 1:30 a.m. Sunday near C and 14th Streets Northeast, involving a red Nissan Altima running a red light and striking a silver Toyota Camry. Police said the 2 people in the Nissan fled the scene, and the 2 people in the Camry were transported to a local hospital where Brian Johnson was later pronounced dead. Hang on a sec. This isn't the Pakistani one. This is a different stolen car in D.C. I just realized that going through this, so... Well, you see signs everywhere in D.C. too, telling you how to prevent carjackings on your own, because the police aren't going to do shit over there. So this is a completely different one. And they're also looking for minors in this one. But there's no viral video to go with this one. However, there is some viral video to go along with the original one that I thought that I was talking about. From the New York Post. Teens accused in fatal carjacking of Uber Eats driver to reportedly get cushy plea deal. From Ben Viewerherd. The 2 teen girls accused of killing an Uber driver in a botched carjacking in Washington, D.C. in March are expected to reach a plea deal with prosecutors in the case. The bargain should be reached in the coming days, but it's unclear if it will fully resolve the case, according to the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness. The girls are due back in court on April 20th to discuss the status of the case, the outlet said. The pair, ages 13 and 15, have been charged with felony murder, carjacking, and armed robbery in the deadly incident, which they allegedly carried out near National Park in the southeast section of the nation's capital. Under D.C. law, the 13-year-old can't be charged as an adult, even in a murder case, according to the Post. The 15-year-old suspect could be charged as an adult, but that would increase the burden of proof on prosecutors, the report said. Wow, that's a lazy fucking way to put that. We don't want to do the proof. We don't want to do the fucking work. Just give them a plea deal and get them the fuck out of here. In juvenile court in the district, the defendants who were found responsible, meaning guilty, may only be jailed until the age of 21, according to the outlet. Driver Mohammed Anwar, 66, was killed during the attempted carjacking last month as the 2 girls allegedly armed with a taser tried to navigate the car down the street, cops said. Anwar, who was hanging onto the vehicle, was fatally injured when the girls crashed, according to cops. The Pakistani immigrant, who lived in nearby Virginia, suffered a head injury and later died, police said. So, I do love the fact that they come out here with this big headline that these girls are getting this cushy plea deal, but they don't tell you what the plea deal is. So, we don't know for sure at this point how cushy this plea deal is, how little they're going. I guarantee that they're not going to be held to, well, that actually would be third-degree murder. Going back and talking back to the Chauvin trial, that would be a third-degree murder because they are killing somebody in the commission of a separate felony, grand theft auto. So that's what third-degree murder would be, but I guarantee you they're not being charged with that if we're talking about a cushy plea deal. And they may or may not even see the inside of a jail cell at this point. But they don't tell us what it is in this particular article. Just that the one can't be charged as an adult and the other one probably won't because that's too hard. I don't want to do that. Which sounds like a very, very DC thing to say. It's part of the reason the presidency has so much power. Because that's the same mentality that goes through Congress. Making laws is hard. I don't want to do that. Just let the president do it by executive fiat. Come on, man. By my executive authority, declare that all dogs should be named Major, okay? I like dogs and I like Major. He bites every once in a while, but he's a good dog. All right, let's keep going. Let's talk about the infrastructure bill. Manchin warns Biden's infrastructure bill is in trouble over corporate tax hikes. From Ted Barrett and Nikki Robertson. Senator Joe Manchin, an influential centrist Democrat, warned on Monday that the Biden admin's massive infrastructure package can't pass in its current form because he and a handful of other Senate Democrats believe the corporate tax hikes proposed in the bill, designed to offset the costs, are too steep. As the bill exists today, it needs to be changed, he told West Virginia Metro News host Hoppy Kercheval in a radio interview when asked if he supported or opposed the president's $2.25 trillion with a T proposal. Manchin said that he is against raising the current 21% corporate tax rate, which was put in place by the 2017 tax overhaul under the Trump administration, to 28% as called for in the bill, and instead supports a middle ground 25% rate, which he called fair. Or, you could leave it at 21%, or here's a thought. Given the fact that we just came off of a section of time where the economy was shedding 1 million jobs a week almost, you could lower the corporate tax rate. But, you know what? No, let's not do things rationally. The West Virginia senator said he would use leverage that he has in the 50-50 Senate to demand changes before voting to take up the bill, which has been introduced but expected to go through weeks or months of negotiations before being debated on the floor. That means pork! If I don't vote to get on it, it's not going anywhere, so we're going to have some leverage here. And it's more than just me, Hoppy. There are 6 or 7 other Democrats who feel very strongly about this. We have to be competitive, and we're not going to throw caution to the wind, he said, without revealing who the other Democrats are. Oh, so those are like those mysterious CNN sources. Manchin has signaled for weeks that he wants to include Republicans in talks over infrastructure package, and then pass a bipartisan bill that could get the 60 votes needed to override a filibuster. He wants to avoid using a partisan budget process called reconciliation to pass with only Democrat votes. Well, actually, I kind of just want them to shoot their wad on this one. Not that I want to see this go through, but I want to see them shoot their wad on this one, because then they can't do another one until 2021. And as mentioned on this program before, the only reason that they got 2 this year, because they're only supposed to have 1 a year. The only reason they got 2 was because they didn't do a budget for 2020. So they didn't do a reconciliation for 2020. So the one for the Kamikoof pork bill was considered a 2020 reconciliation, not a 2021. But that one could be going away. Let's keep going. I got one from Axios for you. And I actually had to ask what the hell was going on with this, because I had no idea. But from Axios, we have Florida governor clashes with 60 Minutes over COVID vaccine rollout. Florida Governor DeSantis announced a COVID-19 vaccine distribution partnership with Publix grocery stores weeks after the company gave $100,000 to his PAC. CBS's 60 Minutes reported Sunday, citing the campaign finance records, DeSantis and Publix deny any wrongdoing. DeSantis has been criticized for directing vaccines towards wealthy communities, with some who benefited from the vaccine pop-ups also donating to the governor's political action committee, per Axios' Tampa Bay reporter Ben Montgomery. This is from 60 Minutes themselves.
So why did the governor choose Publix? Campaign finance reports obtained by 60 Minutes show that weeks before the governor's announcement, Publix donated $100,000 to his political action committee, Friends of Ron DeSantis. Julie Jenkins Fancelli, heiress to the Publix fortune, has given $55,000 to the governor's PAC in the past, and in November, Fancelli's brother-in-law, Hoyt R. Barnett, a retired Publix executive, donated $25,000. Publix did not respond to our request for comment about the donations. Governor DeSantis is up for re-election next year.
I imagine Governor DeSantis's office would say.
So, and I mean, with that and with everything else that goes along with that, yes, Publix did make a major donation to Ron DeSantis, yes. However, DeSantis was out with this and pointed out the fact that, actually very rightly too, from my travels in Florida, because you saw the fucking things everywhere, that with the elderly population out there who was having trouble sometimes getting out to get their vaccines, almost everybody in Florida is within an hour of a Publix. Within an hour's drive of a Publix, almost everybody in Florida lives. So that would be the obvious reason to partner with Publix, wouldn't you think? I would think. State Democratic leaders have asked the Department of Justice to investigate the allegations. The 60 Minutes program highlighted reports of vaccine favoritism, with Florida's poorer communities being left behind in the rollout, noting that there's no Publix in Belle Glade in Palm Beach County. State Democratic Rep. Omari Hardy told the show, "You have lots of folks who don't have cars in the community, and that's a round trip of over 2 hours with 34 stops to the nearest Publix 25 miles away. Before I could call the public health director, she would answer my calls, but now, if I want to get my constituents information about how to get this vaccine, I have to call a lobbyist from Publix. That makes no sense," Hardy added. "They're not accountable to the public." So, with that, I mean, we do have the information up here. But yes, this was a heavily edited, and DeSantis is pushing back hard on this one. Rightly so. Now, I don't know who's in the right off of this, and it does look suspicious as hell that he got a major donation from Publix immediately before he went out and gave them the sweetheart deal to be the distributor of the vaccine. Yes, it looks suspicious as hell, but once again, it would be the same up here in Wisconsin. If we went to a pick and save, because when most people go to town, which is once again, just about anywhere in Wisconsin, you're an hour away from being in town, you're going to the pick and save. There is one in just about every town in this state. I've only been to a handful of cities that don't have one. I'm talking major cities. So yes, the most populous store in the state should be the one distributing it back out because it's the easiest one for people to get to. But we will follow up on that one as it continues to go. This one is continuing to develop. I've got one from Fauci for you guys. Anthony Fauci says federal government won't mandate vaccine passports. From Justine Coleman. Well, we won't mandate the vaccine passport. All that we're going to do is that we're going to come out and we're going to make all the private businesses do that. We'll dangle tax relief over the tops of their heads, and they'll only get it if they mandate it, because we can't do that. We're the government. And there's a constitution constraining us, but they're private property. There's no constitution constraining them. I will admit that's in bad faith. Let's see what Anthony Fauci actually has to say here. Reading from Justine Coleman, President Biden's chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, hallowed be his name, said in a Monday podcast that the federal government will not mandate passports that show proof of COVID-19 vaccinations. But the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases told the Politico Dispatch podcast that he expects certain businesses and educational institutions may require them. And they're going to do it because we told them so. I doubt the federal government will be the main mover of the vaccine passport concept, he said. That may be involved in making sure things are done fairly and equitably, but I doubt if the federal government is going to be leading the element of that. Fauci said, Individual entities, such as theaters and universities, might take the lead on vaccine requirements and implement their own policies. I'm not saying that they should or that they would, but I'm saying you could foresee how an independent entity might say, well, we can't be dealing with you unless we know you're vaccinated, Fauci said. But it's not going to be mandated from the federal government. No, we're not going to mandate it. We're just going to highly encourage everyone to do it. Because I am Fauci, and I have spoken. Hear me speak, okay? The debate over digital or physical vaccine passports has been growing in recent weeks as the U.S. starts to transition into a post-pandemic life. That's funny. Just a month ago, we were hearing that this is a permanent pandemic. You know, not endemic. Fauci's comments are in line with what other administration officials have said recently. The White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki saying last week that there will be no federal mandate requiring everyone to obtain a single vaccination credential. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed an executive order last week banning the government entities from giving out vaccine passports to residents and prohibiting businesses from mandating customers to provide proof of vaccination to receive services. New York, on the other hand, launched the Excelsior Pass last month, which uses a QR code on a phone app to verify proof of vaccination. The EU also released a proposal for vaccine passports that would allow travelers to cross country borders without having to quarantine. So, right there, they're not going to make you do it. Or I'm sorry, the government's not going to make you do it, but, you know, it would be a shame if all those private industries just fell apart because we taxed them into oblivion because they weren't making you do it. All right. And with that, we're going to talk more about vaccine passports. This is from ABC 25, Connecting Central Texas. Ooh, they have 15 weather alerts. Somebody go check on Seawall quick. Make sure he's still alive. Governor Abbott issues executive order that prohibits government-mandated vaccine passports. We have no author given. Governor Abbott issued an executive order that prohibits state agencies or political subdivisions in Texas from creating a vaccine passport. The EO also prohibits organizations that are receiving public funds from requiring consumers to provide documentation of vaccine status in order to receive any service or enter any place. Every day, Texans are returning to normal life as more people get the safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine. But as I've said all along, these vaccines are always voluntary and never forced, said Governor Abbott. Government should not require any Texan to show proof of vaccination and reveal private health information just to go about their daily lives. That's why I've issued an executive order that prohibits the government-mandated vaccine passports in Texas. We will continue to vaccinate more Texans and protect public health, and we will do so without treading on Texans' personal freedoms. And that's the end of the article. So, yep, Abbott is out here saying, just like DeSantis, there will be no vaccine passports coming from the government. Now, I've not read this one like I read DeSantis's, so I'll go back and do my homework and do that. But I don't know if this means that he's also precluding private businesses from mandating a passport. Some of this is going to come down to who is receiving public funding and who is not. But this is a step in the right direction. If you want to participate in stuff that the government sponsors, then we're not going to make you have the vaccine for it. Plain and simple. Your choice. You do what you want to do. So, good on that. All right, from the Blaze. The New York Times gets torched after singling out white evangelical resistance as obstacle in COVID-19 vaccination effort. Sorry I keep adjusting my headphones here. I've got the new headphones ache in the ears. They'll break in eventually, but just the first couple times you wear them, they kind of hurt the ears a little bit. From Dave Urbanski, the New York Times, a former newspaper's Monday headline spelled out plainly, white evangelical resistance is obstacle in vaccination effort. Indeed, the paper of record singled out a giant swath of humanity as the enemy of COVID-19 vaccines, using race and faith as its sole parameters, and quoted Jamie Ayton founder and executive director of the Humanitarian Disaster Institute at Wheaton College, a well-known evangelical school. If we can't get a significant number of white evangelicals to come around on this, the pandemic is going to last much longer than it needs to, Ayton said, according to the Times. The paper also claimed that white evangelical opposition is rooted in a mix of religious faith and a long-standing wariness of mainstream science, and it is fueled by a broader cultural distrust of institutions and gravitation to online conspiracy theories. More from the Times. There are about 41 million white evangelical adults in the U.S., about 45%, said in late February that they would not get vaccinated against COVID-19, making them among the least likely demographic groups to do so, according to the Pew Research Center. As vaccines become more widely available and as worrisome virus variants develop, the problem takes on new urgency. Significant numbers of Americans generally are resistant to getting vaccinated, but white evangelicals present unique challenges because of their complex web of moral, medical, and political objections. The challenge is further complicated by long-standing distrust between evangelicals and the scientific community. What was the reaction to the Times story? After the Times tweeted out a link to its story on Monday, naturally, a number of commentators backed the paper, singling out white evangelicals. In fact, one person said they should be placed in one big arena. Let them pray or sing or whatever they do. Let the virus run rampant throughout the venue. Let science decide their fate. That sounds almost like a concentration camp. But others took issue with the Times report. Bravo, New York Times. Do we have the tweets? No, they didn't put those in there. Bravo, New York Times. I think that you've really outdone yourself with this one. You found another way to be decisive and to further divide the country. Take the vaccine or else it's your fault and be seen as an outsider who does not belong in our society, one commentator said. This is top-notch race baiting here, another user wrote. Wow, still blaming white people, another commentator observed. Don't be such sheep, people. If you want a vaccine, get one. If you don't, don't. We're going to be just fine unless we let Biden Mafia divide us even further than they already have. Time should be ashamed for this type of reporting. Ron, was that you? Is that your tweet up there that I just read? Pretty sure this is not the only group that does not want to take the experimental vaccine, another user said. The New York Times simply justifies since its woke world allows you to be racist against whites and Christians. Shame on you, New York Times, for continually trying to divide society, another commenter said. Hit piece is grounded in nothing but race baiting. Way to find a scapegoat, New York Times, another user shot back. Let's lump everyone in the same category, so white evangelicals all think alike, do the same things. This is so racist, divisive, and all the adjectives you can think of if you take out white and put another group's name in. So stupid. And the last one. Get out of your tiny little biased agenda-filled bubble, another commentator declared. There are plenty of non-religious people who question the scientific validity of the vaccine. If you can't question it, it's not science, it's religion. And there it is. But it's not a cult. Don't worry about that. And I'm not doing this on a religious basis myself when I decided not to get it. It's not for a religious thing at all. I looked at this, and the first thing that I said was, well, this is experimental. This has barely got any data to it. So I'm going to wait a few years to see what happens with people as they get jabbed with this fucking thing left and right. I'm not going to knock anybody who wants to do it. If they want to do it, they want to do it. They can put whatever they want into their bodies. I'm not going to do it until we've got some anecdotal data and a few cases to see who gets sick, who doesn't, who dies, who doesn't, who has trouble carrying kids, who doesn't, all that kind of stuff. Give me a few years to go back and figure out what's going on with this, and then I'll decide whether or not I want to take it. But then the government started making it mandatory, and as I've said for a long, long time, good ideas do not need to be mandatory. And as soon as the government started talking about making it mandatory, I got suspicious. So, good ideas don't have to be mandatory. If it's a good idea, then people are going to want it. But if the government has to mandate it, it's rarely a good idea. You know, it's kind of like socialism. If it was a good idea, Everybody would be jumping in wholeheartedly with 2 feet to come and participate in the wonders of socialism. But because in all the systems it's government mandated, well, you can see where all this goes. All right, I've got a tweet here I thought you guys would find interesting. Andrew Wagner tweets out, Teachers Union president taking a private jet for what would be a 4-hour drive. You truly can't make this stuff up. So this is in response to Randy Weingarten tweeting out, on the way from Portland to Bend, Oregon, to see our newest healthcare unit, the St. Charles Techs, with the OFNHP. Now, this would be normally not the kind of thing, except for the fact that Wagner came with receipts of the same person. These are literally the same people who lecture about carbon footprints. Randy Weingarten tweets out, on Earth Day, please remember that climate change is real and our carbon footprint is everyone's responsibility. Find out how to make your everyday life more Earth conscious here. Weingarten also tweets out, Biden took a concrete step and restored the Obama-era calculation of $51 for every metric ton of carbon released into the atmosphere. Trump had lowered the estimate to between $1 and $7, rendering it meaningless so Trump could slash climate regulations. The richest 1%, that sounds like a Bernie thing, the upper 1%, okay? That's what we need to blame. I am going to quickly become one of the upper 1% once you elect me dictator, but it's all the fault of the upper 1%. The richest, I almost did that in a Bernie voice too. The richest 1% of the world's population are responsible for more than twice as much carbon pollution as the 3.1 billion people who made up the poorest half of humanity during a critical 25-year period of unprecedented emissions growth. And all that I have to say to that is, well, that's fine. Then drive or take the bus when you go from one to the other. Don't take the private plane. Or even if you do have to take a plane for whatever reason, fly commercial. Get 100 people up on that motherfucker. You got vaccinated, didn't you? You don't have anything to worry about. Get 100 people. Pack that fucking plane full. Pack that thing full of people. As full as you can get it. And then you'll offset the carbon emissions because that one flight the carbon emissions will be divided up against 150 people or however many people go on the plane instead of 8 that go on the little private jet that she took to go from Portland to Bend. I thought you guys would enjoy that. All right, from the Daily Wire, Psaki refuses to answer if Biden will stop lying about debunked Georgia election law claim. From Daily Wire News. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki refused to answer multiple questions on Monday related to Georgia's new election security law, including debunked claims that President Biden has repeatedly made and whether Biden regretted his support for MLB boycotting the state after one county said they will lose more than $100 million in revenue, and of course it's Cobb County, which voted heavily for Biden. A reporter asked Psaki, is the president going to change the way he talks about the Georgia voting law? Video? Yes, video.
And then just one more quick one on Georgia to put a bow on it. Is the president going to change the way that he talks about the new Georgia voting law? Because in that interview that you referenced, he said the law would end voting at 5 o'clock when working people are just getting off, and he said it would end voting hours early so working people can't cast their vote after their shift is over. But the Washington Post gave that claim 4 Pinocchios because that part of the law gives counties the option to extend voting hours. And so I'm just curious if the president is going to change the way that he's talking.
Well, fundamentally, the president doesn't believe it should be made harder to vote. He believes it should be easier. And this bill makes it harder to request and return an absentee ballot. It collapses the length of Georgia's runoff election, making it harder for large jurisdictions to offer early voting. It imposes rigid new restrictions on local officials' ability to set polling hours to suit the needs of voters in their county. Those are all pieces of the bill. So his view is that we need to make it easier and not harder to vote, and that will continue to be what he advocates for.
But the thing he said has been determined by election law experts to be not true. So I'm just curious if he's going to stop saying that.
Well, again, I think we can, the fact checkers will also tell you that this bill does not make it easier for people across the state of Georgia to vote, and that's where he has concerns.
So that's what they're saying about that. And yeah, he's not gonna he's gonna read the script. He's gonna read the teleprompter, and whatever's gonna be on the script of the teleprompter are gonna be whatever the people in his administration tell him to say, because ain't a lot going on upstairs. He is a figurehead. Let's keep going. I still got a bunch of stuff to get to. Oh, I still have the Helga Shrine thing up there from when I was making fun of Walsh. From Politico, Arkansas governor vetoes ban on youth transgender care. From Dan Goldberg, Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson on Monday vetoed legislation that would have made the state the first to bar doctors from providing gender-affirming care to transgender minors, describing the measure as a vast government overreach. That's fair, but we still need to look into why there's so much going on in the youth and what to do about the fact that the state is trying to bypass parents on this. The GOP governor said that he worried the legislation would set a new standard for government interference with medical care, and he said he was particularly bothered that the bill did not make exceptions for patients already receiving treatment who would be forced to stop. That makes my heart break to think about it, Hutchinson said. The bill would have marked an escalation of the GOP's efforts to enact anti-transgender measures in state houses around the country this year. It was strongly opposed by medical experts and LGBTQ advocates who warned it would interrupt the needed care. The Republican-controlled Arkansas legislature, however, can still override this veto with a simple majority in both chambers, a step that Hutchinson says he expects lawmakers will take. Right, but he doesn't want his name on this because, in actuality, there is a societal problem that's going on that's forcing this to happen, and the fact that the doctors can bypass the parents and such these things. That's the part that bothers me, is the doctors that can bypass the parents. When a 6-year-old comes in and says, I'm a boy, but I feel like a little girl. That's the part that bugs me about this. And that's something we need to take a step into. But it is, yes, it's a massive government overreach as well. So, a lot of stuff going on with this. It does look like he is going to veto this, though. The lawmakers will probably come back out, and this is probably still going to become a law at some point, which means it's going to go to the Supreme Court, which, from everything I've seen off of this, that's what they plan to do. Get this to the Supreme Court and get something set up into precedent so that all these state houses don't have to do it anymore. But that one looks like it's going to be dead in the governor's office. Let's keep going. From ABC News. New Utah law requires dads to pay prenatal child support. From Sophia Eppolito. Biological fathers in Utah will be legally required to pay half of a woman's out-of-pocket pregnancy costs under a new law unique to the state that critics say doesn't do enough to adequately address maternal health care needs. The bill's sponsor has presented the measure as an effort to decrease the burden of pregnancy on women and increase responsibility for men who have children. But some critics argue the new legislation won't help women who are most vulnerable and could make abusive situations even more dangerous for pregnant women. Utah appears to be the first state to mandate prenatal child support, according to the state's Planned Parenthood Association and the bill's sponsors. But a few states, including Wisconsin and New York, have provisions that can result in fathers being financially responsible for pre-birth expenses. And we go back, once again, to the age-old adage. Yes, there are tons of measures out there that you can take to make sure that you don't have a kid. I am the last person to preach abstinence on this point because of the way that I lived my 20s. I am the last person in the world to preach abstinence to everybody. But even still, the only 100% surefire way to make sure that you don't have a pregnancy that you don't want and pregnancy expenses that you are on the hook for at this point, is don't stick that there. That's the only absolute way to make sure 100%. But we're going to have this argument forever and ever and ever. And this actually may possibly push some people to also not stick that there. Now, if you know that you have a kid, I don't know a lot of fathers out there that know that they have a kid that didn't go out there and gladly accept the pregnancy costs. I mean, one of my friends growing up, her dad worked with my dad, and then she was born 5 days after me. But what I found interesting enough was because my dad had been working in the same place for 5 years by the time I was born, 6 years I think by that point. He'd been working in the same place already for 6 years. And his friend just started working there so he could get qualify for the insurance so my friend could be born. And the insurance would cover it. Like, he went out and got that job to support his daughter being born, which is awesome. And I don't know a lot of fathers that wouldn't do that. Now, I'm sure that they're out there where they know that they have the kid and they say, I ain't going to do anything about that. But to have them legally up on the hook, I think may go a little ways to curbing some of the single motherhood epidemic that's going on with this. So, some things to look at into this and see where this goes. I generally believe this to be government overreach, but sometimes you got a government overreach to keep society going as well. I'm split on this one. I'm 50-50 on this one. All right, from the Daily Wire. Actress scandalized by Democrat Kyrsten Sinema liking tweet about GOP trolled by the senator. That's a very confusing headline. Let's see if we can break this down. Also from Amanda Prestigiacomo. Left-wing activist and Will and Grace actress Deborah Messing. Because of course it had to be Deborah Messing. By the way, I didn't read this article previously either, so I have no idea what's going on with this one, but I thought we would find it interesting. Was apparently scandalized over Democrat Senator Kyrsten Sinema liking a tweet about Republicans' forecasted success in 2022. The tweet Sinema liked was from CNN Politics titled, Why Very Early Signs Are Good for the GOP in 2022. Well, there's a lot of statistics that go along with that. Keep that in mind. Captioning a screenshot of Sinema's Twitter like, Messing tagged the senator and wrote, Is there something you'd like to tell the Democratic Party? And there's the tweet right there. And of course, Team Pelosi, Team Schumer, Team Pelosi, Senator Schumer. The actress also tagged the official accounts for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Charles U. Schumer, seeming to highlight Sinema's naughty behavior to Democrat leaders. All she has to do is go in and say, I'm switching my party affiliation, and the Turtle Man is the majority leader, which is a separate hell in and of itself, by the way. It's a completely separate hell by itself, but no, keep harassing and hassling Manchin and Sinema. Sinema, a moderate Democrat who's repeatedly irritated the left, took the criticism in stride, trolling Messing in reply. Yes, she answered the actress's question. I read. Most recently, Sinema sparked outrage from fellow Democrats and left-wing activists for voting against the $15 an hour minimum wage, and did so by giving a memorable thumbs down. The Daily Beast was particularly upset, publishing a post with the headline, What the fuck is wrong with Kyrsten Sinema? It's bad enough Senator Sinema, the Arizona Democrat, turned down the minimum wage hike with that oh-so-cute thumbs down, the piece complained, but now she's threatening to derail the whole Democratic agenda, insisting the archaic Senate rules that give Mitch McConnell and the Republicans outsized power. That same outsized power that you fuckers had last year, by the way. Remember that? So that's what's going on with that, and Messing is just so appalled by the fact that cinema would like this. And yes, statistically, and given the fact that the progressives have lost their fucking minds at this point, Republicans are in a very good position in 2022. Because there are only 10 seats that separate the two parties right now. There are only 10. And statistically, the president's party loses 20 seats in the House every election. I don't know if that's what's going to happen or not, because I don't have a crystal ball. I just go by the statistics. That and the fact that the president has pudding for brains, doesn't know what he's doing, and continues to do things more and more authoritarian. So, and ship jobs overseas. But it was so scandalous. All right. I got just a couple more, then we'll do Twitter trending and head out of here. From NBC DFW. This is Channel 5. I don't see where this... I think this is out of Texas. Yeah, this is out of Texas. Oh, that's right, because I was talking to Seawall when I found this, and this is a local Dallas affiliate. Allen family of 6 killed in apparent mass murder-suicide pact. Police. From Frank Hines and Maria Guerrero. The bodies of 6 people were found inside an Allen home early Monday morning, the result of an apparent mass murder-suicide, Allen police said. Sergeant John Felty, with the Allen Police Department, said Monday afternoon that the police were asked to perform a welfare check on the behalf of a friend of a suicidal young man who lived in the home. Felty said officers arrived at the home on the 1500 block of Pine Bluff Drive after 1 a.m. and soon found the bodies of 6 people inside the residence. These people were identified Monday afternoon by police as 54-year-old father Townidal Islam, 56-year-old mother Iran Islam, 77-year-old grandmother Altafun Nessa, 21-year-old Tanvir Tawheed, and 19-year-old twins Farbin Tawheed and her brother Farhan Tawheed. Felty said the 2 brothers apparently entered into a suicidal pact to end their own lives and take their family with them based on a lengthy letter posted on one of the boys' social media pages that described in detail what took place and how the boys arrived at their decision. But they're not white, so this isn't getting big mainstream coverage like the rest of them are. In the letter, the boys said they were both clinically depressed and hoped to spare the family any grief over the suicides by taking their lives first and shooting them before killing themselves. I've been here 21 years in Allen. I've never seen an incident like this in 21 years that I've been here, so you can imagine it's just a tragedy. There's no other way to describe it, Felty said. It's a tragedy that you can't imagine. Our heartfelt condolences go out to the family members and friends, and we're just very, very sorry that this event occurred. That is messed up. Big F's in the chat for the family. But this is one of the things. I mean, everyone's been locked in their houses for a year. Now, Texas is a little bit more relaxed with this, but, once again, we're sitting at distance learning school, and this is also in Dallas, which is a bit more left-leaning. It's an urban center. You've got distance learning school. You can't go out and see your friends. You're horribly depressed. People can't go to work. Yeah, I'm less and less surprised that we're seeing some of this stuff. So, that's what we have going on with that. All right. I just found this one funny. So we got to talk about this one. From the Portland Tribune, Portland fears Evergreens mascot tied to lynching. This is surprise stupidity for Monday, just so you know. From Courtney Vaughn, the adoption of a new mascot for Ida B. Wells Barnett High School was put on pause after concerns about potential connotations of lynching. After adopting a new namesake earlier this year, the Southwest Portland High School also wants to ditch its Trojan mascot. A committee comprised of students, staff, and community members suggested the Evergreens as the school's new mascot. Evergreens are characterized by the life-giving force of their foliage, the strength of their massive trunk, and the depths of their roots in an individual tree and as a forest of trees, Ellen Watmore, the teacher and mascot committee member at Wells Barnett High School, said, reading from a resolution, they provide shelter and sustenance. They have histories that preclude and will continue in perpetuity after we are no more. But just before the Portland Public Schools Board of Education's vote to approve the new mascot on Tuesday, March 30th, Director Michelle DePass shared community concerns of an unwanted correlation between Ida B. Wells, the historic black activist and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who documented the crusades against lynching, and a tree, which could conjure up reminders of hanging people with ropes from branches. That's right. A tree which could conjure up reminders of hanging people with ropes from branches. I'm wondering if there was any concern with the imagery there, using a tree as our mascot, DePass said, asked the renaming and mascot committee. Come on, man! I think everyone comes with blind spots, and I think that might have been a really, really big blind spot. That's right. They can't have a pine tree as their mascot because it might have something to do with lynching. America's so dumb. We're so fucked. We are so fucked. All right, and the last one that I have here for you guys before we head out of here for the day. This is from Changing America, Out of the Hill, and a little bit of a white pill for you guys. Gun ownership among black Americans is soaring. In times of uncertainty, people want to be able to have the means to defend themselves, a law professor said. This is from Christian Spencer. Black people are buying guns at a high record rate, partially due to fear and anxiety, according to The Guardian. Black people owning guns has gone up 58.2%, according to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, and gun groups like Not Fucking Around Coalition, consisting of armed social justice advocates who demand justice for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, visibly strapped with handguns. The Guardian also noted that gun ownership amongst black people spiked when both President Trump lost his re-election campaign and when Ahmaud Arbery, a black jogger who died after he was inspecting an empty house, was gunned down. There is so much wrong with that statement. I don't even know where to begin off that, but we're up against the clock too, so I can't really go down that one particular path. In times of uncertainty, people want to be able to have the means to defend themselves. Robert Cottrell, a law professor at George Washington University, told The Guardian, people are worried that they're not being protected and they'll have to do it themselves. Good. Good. Absolutely good. There is so much wrong with relying on the government to be all of your protection. And especially from a group that historically distrusts the police on top of this. There's so much wrong. So absolutely much wrong. With you waiting around for the government to be your protection. Everybody should be armed. An armed society is a polite society. If you're eligible, you have the means, and you're not considered to be a criminal, and therefore available to purchase a firearm, then you should have one, at least. You should have like 10 or 15, or more. You should have a small armory. And I'm glad that people are taking the responsibility to come up and care for their own freedoms, responsibilities, and defense against somebody else. It's not just about the government coming in and deciding that they want to take you in for some trumped up charge that doesn't exist. It's about what happens when some guy coming down the street wants to come in and fondle your wife while she's sleeping. Once he's already in the house, it could take police 5 to 10 minutes to get there in some places. Or you've got your armament sitting there in your nightstand. Absolutely. And even going beyond that, a lot of the rural places. Feral hogs, coyotes, wolves in some places, attacking the cattle, or your house, or your fucking dachshund, for that matter. You can crack off a couple shots before the sheriff will ever get there. Yes, everybody should be armed. I don't care what color your skin is, what color your eyes are, what color your hair is, any of that. Everybody should have at least one armament. And if you know somebody that doesn't have an armament, take them out shooting. Let them borrow yours for a few rounds. Let them feel that in their hands. Everybody should. You know, what did they say in Lord of War, which is one of the 4 movies I've ever seen in my life? What did they say in Lord of War? You know, they say that 1 in 10 people in America has a gun. I'm sorry, it's 1 in 10. They say that 1 in 10 people in the entire world has a gun. My question is, how do we arm the other 9? Absolutely, absolutely should. All right. And that's going to be it for the news. And the last thing that we do on a Tuesday is Twitter trending. So I got the Explore tab up here. Let's get that refreshed, get all the new trends up here, and see what's trending today. Give it one more refresh to make sure. And I've got 13 notifications on Twitter. Probably because I have to do some apologizing to Joshua Smith because I haven't watched his show yet. Number 1, International Asexuality Day. The inaugural International, and this is something they just made up this year too. The inaugural International Asexuality Day is being held on April 6th to promote the work of advocates and celebrate those who identify as belonging to the ace community. Okay. Well, you guys go enjoy celebrating and not boning each other, I guess. We will skip the Tuesday Vibe, Tuesday Motivations. Number 4, which will be our number 2, is National Student Athlete Day. So if you know a student athlete, go and celebrate said student athlete. I will be sending one out specifically. All right. Anime and manga is trending. AOT 139 spoilers. Viewers are having fun wondering about the next episode of Attack on Titan Season 4. I know nothing about anime, so I know nothing about this, but anime fans, see well, I see you. Go speculate about the spoilers. Number 6, which will be our number 4, Varane. Real Madrid confirms that Rafael Varane has tested positive for COVID-19. He will miss the first leg versus Liverpool. Okay. That's kind of not a thing anymore. But they're going to continue to try and make it a thing. All right, the last one for today is going to be Paul Rudd is trending. Why is Paul Rudd trending? Did he make another stupid video where he stands Billie Eilish? Oh no, it's his birthday. It's Paul Rudd's birthday. So, go over and tweet at Paul Rudd happy birthday if you know who he is. But, you know, like I said, I've only ever seen 4 movies in my life, so I don't really know who Paul Rudd is. All right. And that's going to be it for the day. Let's switch up the scene. Let's throw on some music and let's get the hell out of here. Get you guys out there for your day. And thanks again for having your coffee with me, you guys. Even though I didn't have coffee this morning. Because I didn't have time to make any when I got up. Where's my opening scene? There it is. All right. Throw some music up and let's get out of here. All right, so thanks everybody who came by and hung out with me this morning, had your coffee and your headlines with me. I'll be back here tomorrow for more contemporary, and we'll do even more headlines, so come and hang out with me there. And remember, mark your calendars for April 17th when we go back and do 24 hours of live stream for suicide prevention. Looking forward to seeing you guys over there and hanging out with you guys for 24 hours. We've got some great interviews. We've got some great segments. It's going to be an exciting day. I'm fairly excited to see what goes on with this and who's ready to go and do what. So we will see you guys then. Looking forward to that. And for $2,000, I'm going to cut my hair. $2,500, I think, is what we landed on. $2,500, and my hair gets cut. I go clean cut, and then I start the process over because I still want to grow one more wig for one more cancer patient. So definitely looking forward to that as well. Otherwise, yeah, like I said, we'll be back here tomorrow morning. And if you're just lurking right now, get those last minute messages in so I can get your name in the notebook and give you guys the special thanks at the end of the week that I always do. And I always want to make sure I thank you guys up on Friday. So other than that, we will see you guys tomorrow for more Contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.